Okay, so before we get started with Rumi, I want to do another poll to see how you guys liked him. And then I'll address a few of your questions that you mentioned in your really good reading assignments. Actually, I really like them. Some of you are really thinking really well, challenging me actually. So that's good. So let's do the poll. I'm going to put you on gallery view. So remember, 10 is the ideal. This was an amazing experience. 1 is you want to shoot yourself. Okay, any 10s for Rumi? Just put your hand up if there's any 10s. No 10s. Okay, 9, 8. Okay, 1 9. Sing. 8 for Khan. All right. 7. Okay, 6, 5. Amore. 4. Oh, blades. 3, 2, 1, 0. 1 for De La Torre. Okay. Oh my God. Cancino, 0. All right, we're gonna start with the haters. Cancino, De La Torre, and Blades. What happened?
Well, in our breakout sessions, I think that Tor and I kind of like agreed that like it was just really like wordy and like very weird, like dense reading. It kind of reminded me of like Shakespeare, where you're reading it and you're like, I gotta read this 10 more times to understand it. But I had already did my critiques and my questions before class yesterday. So since I didn't have like an understanding of who Rumi was, like I was like a little confused. But I was just, while reading it, I thought that he was saying that like it sounded like he emphasized love more than knowledge, and I don't necessarily agree with that. Well, he's not saying that love or like knowledge is not important. He just made it seem like it's not as important as love. So I don't have that view whatsoever. And I don't know if he was saying that it's okay to be ignorant in order to like go to heaven. So I was just like not. Yeah, I was like, I don't know. Is he saying it's okay to be stupid? You know what I'm saying? I was just like, you know.
So yes, a lot of you have become converted to Maimonides, I see. I'm reading you and I'm seeing Maimonides pop out of every reading assignment. Like, what is this? How can we not use our mind? We have to doubt, right? You've been already indoctrinated by the first half of the class, by Job, right? Which is good, which is good. Now, just to clarify, before I get to the other 2 haters, we are still talking about knowledge, right? But it's a different kind of knowledge, right? So Rumi's not saying we should just be opinionated and go with whatever's, happening out there and just, like go with the flow. No. He's talking about knowledge, but it's a different kind of knowledge, knowledge of the heart, right? So I want to specify, right? Does that make sense? Cancino, does that help a little bit to know that there's still knowledge, but it's a different kind of knowledge?
I'm like, yes and no, because like I like value like the sciences and the mathematics out there and stuff like that, and I just didn't want like, well, I mean, I just like, I don't know, like I was just like, these are really important to me in my life. Oh. So I didn't know if he was trying to like lessen their value or what, so I was just like
we'll talk about that, so I'll come back to that. De La Torre, you're next.
So like Cantino said, it was really hard to read. I wrote in my reflection that it was like Shakespeare or like Plato, how many times I had to reread the same poem, and I was only able to grasp like either the beginning statement from Rumi or the concluding statement, but always the middle always like was lost on me. I didn't really understand the analogies that he was using. In some instances, I felt like he was agreeing with Maimonides in the poem, "The Truth Within Us," when a Sufi is like meditating and someone goes up to him asking him, how can you, like, while you're doing that, you might miss the signs from God that you're asking for. And then he gives a response that what he know, like the responses from God, he holds within. Whatever symbols that are out there are just symbols, which I felt like was similar to what Maimonides was saying, in the sense that once you have that true wisdom connection in your mind intellectually with God, you're able to touch that source of wisdom and knowledge to help you out. So I felt like it was very similar. I guess they just placed it in different areas, where Maimonides is the mind and he's the heart.
Yeah, I like that.
If it was easier to read, I would have said I enjoyed it, but I couldn't really understand it, so it was like, yeah.
Okay, very good. I like your connection with Maimonides. I hadn't thought of it like that, and it works actually. Now, just to address one question that De La Torre mentioned, and a lot of you actually mentioned. Some of you were saying, why is he so unclear, right? Why does he write? Why can't he be clear? So one of the reasons, of course, there are two reasons, right? One of them is that he's talking about a dimension which is mysterious, right? It's hard to be clear when you're talking about something which is transcendent, right? I can be clear about the pencil here, right? We can all see it, right? But when I'm talking about something which surpasses my understanding, which surpasses my vision, it's hard, right, to give a clear rendition of something that I have trouble seeing, right? So that's one of the reasons. The other reason why he seems a bit inaccessible is that he's dealing with spiritual truth, which according to him, according to the Sufis, you have to really desire it, right? You have to seek for it. You have to be worthy of it. And so they are coding everything. Like I told you last time, everything is coded to test your heart, right? To test the perseverance. How willing are you to dig and to decipher and to do the hard work of interpreting, right? They're making sure that not anybody can understand, right? They don't want to throw, we say in the Bible, to throw the pearls to the pigs, right? They don't want to do that. So they're intentionally hiding the truth behind these metaphors so that only those who truly desire it can eventually access it, right? Does that help a little bit with the unclarity de la Torre?
Yeah, I think that's sort of how I answered it, that I felt like only those who truly wanted to put in the work to understand it will be able to get the hidden message. But it's still, I think, if it's such important information and it's something that has to do with the heart and not the mind, wouldn't you want more people to know this so that they can touch that with God? I don't know.
Absolutely, yeah. So thankfully today we're going to understand some of these metaphors. Okay, Blades, quick comment from Blades. Go ahead.
I just think initially I just haven't really enjoyed like engaging with it. I mean, initially, like when you brought up how he attained this idea of Sufism, like if the same old man came to my place and birthed all my books, I would not have taken that as well. I probably would have kicked him out and asked him to pay for all of my books. But I think that my initial kind of like feelings towards Sufism is largely informed by, I guess, just a preference in reading. While I didn't really with a lot of what Maimonides said, I enjoyed the systematic way he approached as far as understanding metaphysics. Like if you want to get a good grasp of metaphysics, and you understand these systems, these academic systems that exist already. But I guess upon reading that and kind of paralleling that to the idea of developing a pure heart, I was expecting something akin to that when I was reading the poems. I was expecting something that would develop like a systematic mode of approaching the purity of a heart that would allow you to understand wisdom. Because I feel like that, that works as far as understanding it, because I think without that, you're taking these things and understanding them as water, like, water for the thirsty traveler, but it's, how can you really, if you don't engage with that kind of resonated feeling, how do you understand that as something outside of like your own personal bias?
Okay, very good. I saw that I was going to respond actually to your comments also in your reading assignment, right? Okay, so one of the point that Blades is making, which is really important, is that sometimes when we hear something which corresponds to a bias that we have, it feels really good. It feels like the water to the thirsty traveler, right? For instance, you're already angry about police violence. You go to social media, everybody else is angry. You even see some conspiracy theory now, and that conspiracy theory, because it fits with maybe certain biases you have, you're gonna feel good. It's gonna feel like water, right? So Blades is saying, if an idea feels good, doesn't mean it's true. It just means it fits with your bias. That's why it feels good. Now, to respond to this, remember, Rumi is not on the level of the mind. There are no biases gonna interfere. It's on the level of the heart. It's an experience, right? So this is not about biases or even if you have biases, it's happening on another level. Does that make sense, Glades? We are not on the intellectual level of biases and thoughts and theories. We're on the level of it's a different level. It's the level of the heart. Now and the heart has no biases, right? The heart is just, it's a different level of being, right? It's a different story. So that's to respond to the first thing you were saying. The second thing, right? Some of you were complaining about why he doesn't systematically explain. That's kind of what Blades is saying. Why doesn't he give some arguments? I think that was Kestenbaum, right? Why doesn't he argue for his stuff, right? Again, Rumi is talking about, he doesn't need to argue because what he's talking about can only be understood, not intellectually, but through experience, right? So he's giving us glimpses of a possible experience. We can only know what he's talking about through experience. The proof is not going to be intellectual, it's going to be what we experience. Does it correspond to what he's saying? Does that answer you a little bit, Blades, what I just said?
Yeah, it does. Experience is what's going to inform, right? Experience is like what's going to have the effect on the heart.
Exactly. Now we need to know more before we can go further. Let's hear One Lover. I don't know who, there was a couple sing and Khan, I think, right? Just one of you jump in.
So I guess I like this book because, well, for one thing, the other classmates said that it was really hard to understand, but for me, I took your other class and we read a book about Rumi. I read a book about Rumi, Bridge to the Soul, and I kind of have a way to understand Rumi. I've read this before, so I understand his writing style. And
yeah, I've studied
I really like his like deeper, like his metaphors and his deeper understanding, to like his deeper metaphors to understand what exactly he's saying. It's just like another thing I like is that it's poetry, and poetry is kind of like you can interpret it in a billion different ways, which is like there's no wrong way to interpret it. I mean, obviously there's a better way to interpret something, but there's no wrong way. So that's why I really like Rumi.
Very good, very good. All right. Yes.
Can I just say like one thing? So like the idea of like him like being like metaphorically great and stuff like that, like I can appreciate that, you know what I'm saying? Like I think that's great. But then like thing is that if you're focusing on like loving stuff and stuff like that and you're not focusing so much on your knowledge, how can one decipher what he's really talking about if they don't have that knowledge? You know? So that's why I was like his text to me kind of contradicted himself because he's using like all these words and all these things and it's like no but you got to know what the hell I'm talking about to know what I'm saying, you know. But then at the same time I'm like, well, my heart's not going to read this, my mind is, you know. So that's why like I don't know, like I just
okay, good. Yes, I think you're right. If you haven't experienced what he's talking about, it's hard to understand, right? And so you're wondering, well, how will I ever know, right? In a way, he's also inviting us to experience something, right? He's not just he's describing an experience, but this description is an invitation, right? So we're going to go a little deeper what he's saying, but you have to see Rumi also like an invitation to experience so that you can then resonate more deeply with what he's saying, right? Okay, so let's get into, I'm going to focus on the first hour. I'm just going to focus on Mystic's Note. So you can go there on page 11. And let me summarize a little bit again what I said last time, contrasting Rumi and Maimonides, since most of you have become Maimonideans now. So you need this bridge. So remember, right, for Maimonides, right, God is not the origin of evil, right? And there's a way out of suffering through our mind. As we open our minds, as we refine our minds, we can receive the divine wisdom to climb out, right? Now, Rumi is different. God, we'll see in the second hour, actually brings suffering. Suffering can be seen as a gift from God. We're going to see that in the second hour, as a gift which helps to purify the heart, right? Because for Rumi, unlike Maimonides, the heart is the seat of revelation. It's through the heart that you know. Now, going deeper, knowledge of the heart versus knowledge of the mind, right? Now, so let me reiterate what I said last time, right? As Westerners, we have grown up thinking there's only one type of knowledge, which is scientific knowledge of the mind, right? We grow up in school, and in school, all we do is study geometry, algebra, science, physics, history. This is all up here, right? There's nothing in our education system that caters to or develops the knowledge of the heart, right? This is this, and it's not. And if you go in the religion, right, the different religions which are on the margins, it's still not knowledge of the heart. It's faith, which is a kind of, you know, thing that you're not supposed to. It's not knowledge. It seems completely unreliable, right? When you're listening to it from an outside standpoint, it's still seen as something unwarranted, unfounded. It's not a knowledge. It's a kind of, you know, vague feeling. So we haven't talked about it. So this is why for us, this particular poem is going to be very new. This idea that there's a knowledge of the heart. How does that work, right? So let me explain a little bit whether the two are incompatible, right? And so to respond to Cancino, right? Rumi is not saying that scientific knowledge is worthless, right? He's simply saying scientific knowledge is at home in the world of the visible. In the realm of the visible, yes, we need scientific knowledge to understand, you know, how the universe works, how the human body works, how, you know, how how nature works, right? So scientific knowledge is very important to understand the world we live in, the bodies that we inhabit, right? But when it comes to the invisible realm, right? There's in other words, for Rumi, there are two dimensions, just like for Plato, by the way, right? There's the visible realm of what we see, feel, touch, and there's a deeper dimension of the invisible realm. This, for Plato, is the realm of the ideals, of the soul. For Rumi, it's the realm of the divine, right, of God. So there's an invisible realm, right? And this realm, when it comes to this realm, scientific knowledge just hits a limit. It can't go in. It's like, let's imagine, have you ever seen a duck? In water, they look great, right? When a duck is in water, it's like graceful, it has feathers, it has like elegance, and then it comes out of the water and it's like waddling around, right? Looking stupid, right? It's the same. If the scientific knowledge gets out of its element into a different element, it can't do it. It's limited when it comes to this new dimension. For this new dimension, we need other tools. We need other vision. And this other vision, says Rumi, is the vision of the heart, right? So we are in a world today where there are two sides. There's the scientific side, which says religion is bullshit because we can't prove it. So you have strong side like this. And then you have the other side of the ignorance, right? At least in the eyes of the scientific side, these complete morons who believe whatever they're told, right? This is the two alternatives that a lot of us are facing, is even in this country. Either we join the scientific side and, you know, and then we look intelligent or we join the circle of morons who believe whatever they're told, right? The religious institutions, right? So Rumi is saying, no, neither, right? We can't be morons when it comes to religion. It is a knowledge that we need to acquire and prepare ourselves for, right? But to enter so make sure you write this down, right? The realm of the visible, to explore this, the mind is perfect. The mind is made to explore the realm of the visible and the human body that we inhabit. But when it comes to the realm of the invisible, make sure you write this down. We need a different set of eyes. We need different tools. Just like when you enter water, right? If you're on land, you're going to travel with a car, it's going to be great. But if you get to the water and you continue with your car, it's not going to work. You're going to sink, right? You need a boat. This is what he's talking about. When it comes to the invisible realm, we need a boat. We need a different mode of transportation. We need a different approach, different eyes, different tools. And that's why he's saying we need to shift. The reason a lot of us are stuck when it comes to the spiritual journey is that we are hanging on to the mind and we are just stuck thinking that if I don't understand, it doesn't exist, right? We need to develop the other approach, which is also part of what it means to be human, right? We don't have to be, angels to do this. This is in us, right? Okay. Any questions so far before I get into now what it means to know in the way of the heart? Everybody good? Okay. All right. So now let's get into the knowledge of the heart. So now this is the part where it gets a bit tricky, where I lose some of you. So first, before I talk about the knowledge of the heart, I'm going to talk about the structure of knowledge. Okay. So that we know what knowledge means. Okay. Because we're throwing words around, but we don't really know what they mean, right? So I'm going to start with scientific knowledge, define what that is, and then we're going to talk about the knowledge of the heart. Okay, so first of all, scientific knowledge. So what is knowledge? Knowledge is simply knowledge or truth, right? I'm going to write it down, right? You have knowledge or truth, right? Something that is true or something that you know, when there is a correspondence between your thoughts and reality. Okay, this is the definition I'm going to give to knowledge or truth. There is a knowledge, you know something, when there is a correspondence between what you think something is and what that thing really is. Okay, so for example, if I say the pencil is green and then I look and everybody looks and we all agree that the pencil is green in reality, what I said is knowledge. If I say the pencil is blue and we look and the pencil is not blue, what I said is not knowledge, it's a falsehood. Are we clear? So knowledge is not just fact, right? Let's distinguish. Knowledge is not a fact. Knowledge is not an idea or a thought, right? Knowledge is the thought which fits, which resonates, which is perfectly describing a reality, right? So it's there. So you have knowledge when you have a thought and reality and they fit. Any questions on that? This is very important. Everybody gets that? So for example, if I say, remind me of the last physics formula you learned, you know, the one with speed equals, what is it? Time over, help me somebody. What is it? What's this formula with, thank you. Oh, no, not that one. not Einstein, Newton. A speed, I think is distance over time, right? Yes. Miles per hour, right? Distance over, okay. Speed is distance over time. Am I right? Everybody agrees with me on this formula? I haven't done physics in a while. Please say yes if you agree with my formula. Silence. Okay. What's happening? V equals distance over time. We good? Or are we all philosophers who have no clue about the laws of physics? Nobody remember? Thank you, Cancino. Okay. I'm not sure. I haven't done this in a while. Okay, so this is like my thought, right? I have a theory, right? That V equals D over T, right? Now I have to actually look that it's actually happening. So I have to throw my pencil this time and see whether the distance traveled over time, actually, whether it works, right? And then I have a truth. Then I know if my thinking has been verified, if there's a correspondence between the two, we have truth or knowledge. Any questions on that? Does everybody understand what I just said so far? Put your hand up. Okay, great. All right. So now that we understand what knowledge is, let's look at the knowledge of the heart, right? Which we've never discovered before. So knowledge of the heart is not going to start with a thought. Knowledge of the heart, let me write it down, is going to be or truth of the heart, right? Or spiritual truth, right? It's going to be a correspondence also, right? I can't write correspondence. Correspondence between, this time, feelings and again, reality, right? The heart doesn't have thoughts. Heart has feelings, right? Now, according to Rumi, feelings can know. You can know through your feelings something to be true or not. But how does it work? How does a feeling become less than just a feeling and actual knowledge? That's the question, right? Because we have lots of feelings. And sometimes we have feelings that don't correspond to reality. You know, the last time you were mad at your boyfriend or girlfriend and you had this feeling of, and then it turns out they were like innocent. Anybody have this? Am I the only one having these problems? Like overwhelming feeling of like frustration and anger, and then you kind of clarify, and the poor guy is like, what are you talking about? I never said that, I never thought that, and you realize you're the one by yourself, right? So this is not yet a thought, right? Just a feeling is not a thought. Reality out there is not a knowledge either, right? Is the correspondence, between the feeling and the reality. So let me give you the framework how this works. Okay, so maybe I can use the book of Job. Oh, the book of Job is not so great. It would be great to start with an example. I'm going to use the example of Bob Dylan. Okay, all of you know Bob Dylan? I can't tell. I have to look at your faces. I'm sure you do. Everyone knows Bob Dylan? What? That's it? 3 people? Who doesn't know Bob Dylan? Who is so un-American as to not know Bob Dylan? Okay. All right, Bob Dylan, folk singer from, I don't know, he's still alive actually, but he was really big in the, I don't know, 80s, 80s, 70s. Gosh, okay, not as American either, apparently. Anyways, this guy had an experience. He had some kind of conversion to Christianity. He wrote an album where he talks about, there's this, I wish I remembered. One of you can Google it while I'm talking, actually, if you want to do something smart with yourselves. Google me this album where he's just fresh out of being born again, right? So remember, he wasn't born a Christian, right? He was Jewish, actually, agnostic Jewish, and had this experience, became born again, wrote an album. I want someone to find me the title of the album, in which he talks about, oh my God, something about a restless heart finding rest, right? This is similar to what, so I'm waiting for one of you to find the name of this album. But this is
Slow Train Coming.
No, not that one. No. It has to do about being restless and being and finding like an unrestless heart or something like that. It's not Restless Pilgrim, I don't think so.
Appetite for Destruction.
What?
Appetite for Destruction.
No.
Good morning.
It's something like an un-da-da-da-da heart. And the da-da-da-da is like something like restless or unquiet, something like that. Oh God, I'll have to look it up and tell you next time. In any case, that album actually, very similar experience to a church father called St. Augustine. And I'm gonna give you the quote here. St. Augustine, he's around hundreds, early Middle Ages, early Christian Middle Ages. And he wrote something very powerful. He said, my heart was restless until it found rest in you. Okay, this is the quote from St. Augustine. And it's similar experience to what Bob Dylan went through, right? That I can't find the album right now. And the album is a bunch of gospel songs, actually, right? He switched his style. Everybody hated him for it. People were really resentful that he changed kind of his folky, like hippie kind of, style to like gospel, right? And nobody was waiting for that. Anyways, so it's an experience where you had a longing, okay? So and both of these guys, right? St. Augustine and Bob Dylan, same experience that Rumi is describing here, right? You have a powerful longing for something more. You have a powerful longing which nothing in reality has quenched so far, right? You have women, you have wealth, you have men, you have whatever you want, right? And your heart remains restless in you, right? People are still giving suggestions. Yeah, I'll have to look it up. If it's a slow train coming, because maybe it's the name of a song then, because I'm having something else in my head. Maybe it's the name of the song in that album. I have to look it up. During the break, I'll look it up.
Yeah, because it says Bob Dylan and Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. So maybe the heart part was the actual name of the group.
But it's not Heartbreak. No,
Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers are an actual band.
Yeah, it's not that. It's not that.
And Tom Petty died, so.
It's the name of a song or the name of an album. Okay, let me continue. We'll talk about it during the break. Keep your or write them in the chat. Okay, where was I? Yes, okay, so this is an experience where you have powerful longing, right, which nothing can quench. And pay attention, because Marcel, by the way, which we'll study later on, going to talk about the same thing, right? So you have a longing which nothing can, you're not finding peace in anything that you're doing. you have friends, you have relationships, you have a good job, you have money, and yet you're still restless, right? And one day you have an encounter, powerful encounter, right? Where all of a sudden, for the first time in your life, your heart is at rest, right? You haven't imagined it because that's in your head, right? It's happening, right? You're not forcing it. You're not, this is not a prejudice. This is not wishful thinking, because it's not happening on the level of the mind, right? All of a sudden, your heart finds rest in this kind of encounter. Similar to Job, right? He's crying out, he's longing, and we see at the end, somehow his heart is appeased, right? Whatever happened in God's speech, Job has found appeasement, right? So this is what what Rumi is talking about. It starts with a feeling of longing. You long to experience more. You feel empty, or you feel restless, or you feel anxious. By the way, let me just get an idea of the class. How many of you have experienced this, right? Where you have, everything's going well, right? Your life is together, but you still feel restless and empty and anxious. Anybody can relate to this? Okay, about 5 of you. Good. All right, so 5 of you will understand today's lecture. The rest of you, you'll understand later when it hits you, because it will. So what he's talking about is this. Now, it's not enough to have a feeling. That in itself is not a knowledge. There has to be something in reality. Make sure you write this down. Something in reality responds to your feeling in a way that is so powerful that for the first time, you feel at peace, right? That's the idea. So something responds. Now, I'm going to talk about the different ways that reality can respond. There are different levels, right? But it's both your longing and reality's response are felt, not as clarity, right? Mental clarity, but peace, right? A deep inner clarity, a deep inner emotional clarity, which can be called peace, right? So let me say it one more time for some of you, right? So we saw that knowledge, scientific knowledge is your thought with reality, boom, it corresponds, you have truth, right? On the heart level, you have a longing, you have a restlessness, you have a restlessness is a kind of heart question. You know what I mean? It's the heart is questioning when you feel restless and anxious, right? So you have this. And then something in reality, and I'm going to talk about what kind of things, right? But something in reality comes along from the outside of you. You're not conjuring this, right? It comes from the outside, and it is such a complete response to how you are feeling, right? It fits so totally that in a way that reality gives you total peace. And by the way, you can't force peace. Peace happens, right? So for those of you who are skeptics, right? You can't invent this experience, right? You can't create this experience. If we knew how to create peace, oh my God, there would be a business. We would be like millionaires, right? Because that's amazing, right? So peace is not something you can, what's the word? How conjure? Is that a word people understand? Conjure, like
Can't manufacture. Can't manufacture peace. Can't manufacture peace.
We can't manufacture peace. Thank you, that you're helping me, right? We can manufacture biases, right? We can manufacture in our heads an alternative reality, right? But when it comes to peace, that's something we can't manufacture. If it comes to you, something has taken place that's very profound. You have a knowledge. You have had an experience of a spiritual kind, right? Now, let me talk about 2 ways. There are 2 ways that this reality can respond, right? Which can be felt as, right? You feel that peace and you are at that moment of truth, right? The first one, so let me write it in the chat. There's a direct way and an indirect way that reality responds to a spiritual longing, right? Or restlessness. Okay, so I wrote it all in the chat, right? There is a direct way and an indirect way that you can experience this moment of truth, right? Or this knowledge. The indirect way is usually, right? Suppose you, Well, let me give you an example from my own family. Then you have an example, right? So this is a story that happened to my dad when he was very young. He was like 7 years old. And he lived in a French context. So in that context, at that time, when he was at that age, the style was to wear a certain kind of hat called a beret. Everybody knows what what this is. Let me make sure everybody knows what a beret is. Hold on, let me get to gallery. A beret, everybody? Yes? The kind of little hat, you know, flat that kids used to wear. Okay, so he was like, so he's right, he prays, right? He says, God, I would like a beret. Now, you have to remember, well, you don't know. So my father comes from a background like no money, zero. No money, right? Nobody's going to buy him a beret, right? It's not going to happen, right? Nobody has money for that. Everybody's broke. So he's really asking for something impossible when he's asking, you know, to the universe or to God, I want a beret. So he's walking home from school, just made his request, arrives at the apartment building where his whole family lives. They live on different floors. He gets to the first floor. His aunt opens the door and she's like, hey, come here. I got something for you. So he goes in and guess what? Guess what she had for him? Anybody know? Nobody can guess? Well, I'm waiting. Yes, Christensen, the beret, right? Answer, question, answer, coming completely outside of his power, right? Reality responding to a spiritual longing, right? He's asking God, meaning in a way he's asking God, are you there? Do you have my back? Do you exist for me? The answer comes in the form of this gift, right? Now, perfect, right, correspondence between the longing and the gift, indirect indication that perhaps there is a God, right? So he has at that moment spiritual truth. Longing meets with reality. Reality in a way has responded to his longing. And at that moment of the response, where he receives that response, at that moment, this is lived as a spiritual truth. At that moment, something has happened which is profoundly appeasing, right? Everybody understands this first one, this indirect, okay, good. So any questions so far? So this is, a lot of us, right? Few of us have had this experience, right? But this is not the experience Rumi is talking about, right? But this is one way to see it. There is a deeper way, which one might call the direct experience. In other words, you are troubled, you are restless, or you have a moment where you are weeping for like the last 3 hours, right? And all of a sudden you get, now this is very profound experience and pretty rare, right? Especially when one is at the beginning of one's life, right? But a few of you might have experienced this already. This is a moment where you are in such despair and you call out, right, to God or spiritually, and you receive a direct feeling or sense of the presence of God. So this is a feeling which comes and appeases completely your anxiety, appeases your sadness, appeases your anger, right? You get a palpable sense of the presence of God within you, surrounding you. At that moment, your heart is at rest. You haven't received any solutions, right? You don't know how to get out of the situation, but you've received the direct experience of the presence of God, and your heart is at peace. And at that moment, the peace, which cannot be manufactured, can only come at that moment from somewhere else. At that moment, you have experienced, you are in direct contact, you know that there is a God. Does this one make sense, this second experience? Has any one of you had that experience, right? And it doesn't even have to be directly related to God, right? It can be you were going through something and all of a sudden you felt this peace wash over you, or you felt this relief and you felt it's going to be okay. You felt some kind of presence. Has anybody of you ever experienced something like that? This is much more rare than okay, so one or two or three, right, people? So this is what Rumi is talking about, right? He's talking about an experience which all of us are invited to have, right? But it is an experience which, because it cannot be manufactured or invented, is real. and as such counts as knowledge, right? At that moment when you are sensing the presence of God all around you and this feeling of peace enveloping you, you know God. You have a direct experience, right, of the presence of God. And so anyone now will come, having had this experience and having had this encounter, right, in your flesh. This is not in the mind. This is happening in your body, in your flesh, around you. Having had this powerful real life encounter, you meet someone in the street. They tell you, I don't think God exists. You don't care what arguments they will give you. That none of this matters because you've felt it in your very flesh, right? So that's why Rumi says in the text, right? The baby drinks the milk. And then does the baby still need to ask questions? No, because the baby's found the answer in the experience. So whatever question gonna pop up in the mind doesn't matter anymore. It knows. Right? And let me make you a parallel experience, right? Suppose some of you will go through this, right? Suppose you fall in love with someone and you've lived with them a few years and you know them very well. And one day they come home, the police arrives and they accuse your partner that you know very well in the flesh of murder. All right. And they give you all the facts, right? They give you all the facts, the evidence and everything. But you know this person in the flesh, you know that they could never do this, right? This is what Rumi is saying. When you know in the flesh someone, right, whether it's a human being or God, arguments against them just flow over you because you know them so deeply that none of these arguments matter anymore. Am I making sense? Let me make sure I'm making sense. Raise your hand if you see what I'm saying. Right, so the police comes to you, they give you all the explanation of how your partner murdered this person, but you know them in the flesh, right? You've lived with them. You've tasted them, right? They live within you. You know them in a way that none of this evidence knows them, right? Or can say anything. And so at that moment, because you have dwelt with them and you have known them in your flesh, nothing can stand, nothing can disprove.
Can I say something?
Yes, go ahead.
I think Rumi, because by Rumi experience that I read with Cham, which is his mentor, I think that's the way I understand it. You know what I mean? That Cham was his mentor, and he was a poor person. He didn't have that knowledge, or he was not wealthy. And the way that you are telling me is like the same way that Rumi deal with Cham, that he was helping him, like to put him in the same social status as him. Is that the same like you're saying? Or?
So yeah, so Rumi got his knowledge from this mentor, right? Trujillo is mentioning, called Shams Tabriz. I'm typing it in the thing, right? So in a way, this is an application. When you know the master, when you trust the master, you can trust the teaching. So that's one way, right, of seeing this kind of knowing, right? That because you trust the person, you can trust what they say. But this is a little different because this has nothing to do with Shams Tabriz, right? This is an experience, a direct encounter with the divine, where you had a longing and you have been appeased, right? This is there's no mediation with a teacher, right? This is something that you experience in your flesh, and which is, in that sense, a kind of experiential knowledge, right? Let's distinguish between intellectual and experiential knowledge. This is what is going on, right? If I've experienced God, right? I've experienced his or her presence, right? I've experienced the being led. I've experienced being comforted. I've experienced, and so forth, right? This is what he said. If I've experienced, that's a kind of knowledge, which is just as reliable as intellectual knowledge, but of course, more reliable than intellectual knowledge, right? Because intellectually, we don't know much about God. Now, I can hear your objections. I'm seeing already Kestenbaum. Kestenbaum, elaborate. Why would Maimonides hate that?
Sure. So as you were saying, Rumi is taking the approach that even though I don't know it, I can't base it off of evidence or proof or facts, nonetheless I feel it. It's intuition of mine. Whereas Maimonides takes the view that, and that's the knowledge of the heart. And Maimonides takes the view, no, you need the knowledge of the mind. And not only that, but he says that when you have a discrepancy between the Bible and science, it's actually not a discrepancy at all. You just have to think deeper because the science and the proof and the evidence is actually there. Like he would hate this idea of you don't even need the science and you don't even need the proof because you just believe it because you've experienced God and you just love him so much. So even though the cops are telling you that your wife killed someone, hey, I just love her so much. Maimonides wouldn't buy that.
Be careful. It's not I just love her so much. It's I know her.
I know her, yeah.
Right? This is, by the way, you of all people should understand this. The word for knowledge in Hebrew, right, is the same word as the sexual relationship, right? Yada.
Yeah.
To know someone, the only type of knowledge in the Hebrew Bible is physical knowledge, right? Which is the knowledge of the experience, right? In the Hebrew Bible, there's no conceptual knowledge, right? And I think in that sense, you can reconcile Rumi with at least the Hebrew Bible, not Maimonides, who is a rationalist, who is, by the way, more Greek than Hebrew, right? In that sense. But when it comes to the Hebrew Bible, look at Job. Does he understand at the end of the story? No, right? He still doesn't understand, but he has experienced. Something has come to him, something has transformed him, something has penetrated him, right? And now his ears had heard, but now his eyes, quote unquote, have seen. Are you seeing what I'm saying? Rumi is close to Job, actually, in that sense, right? That there are, when it comes to God, the intellect is helpless. We can only know God in our flesh, through the experience. Now, Job knows God through this shattering experience, transformative experience, right? Where he's exploded open into, from selfish, self-enclosed to compassionate. That explosion, right? This penetration of God in Job, that's the knowledge that he has. This is why he, right? There's no intellectual knowledge in Job. This is what Rumi is saying, right? There, when it comes to God, intellectually, you're going to be limited. The only way you can know is in your flesh, in the experiences you have, in the, right. Now, I'm anticipating also, I'm hearing more objections from you. How do we know that we are not, how do we know that the feeling is true? Right? I guess that would be the question that some of you could ask, right? How do we know that this feeling of peace is true? Again, right? You can't manufacture it. If it's there, there's something going on that you need to explore, right? There's something going on that is worth exploring, that has the worth of a truth, right? So that's the idea. Any questions? Because this is a difficult topic.
What if you're like manipulated to love something? You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't, I understand like the idea of like, oh, knowing, but what if you think you know what I'm saying? Like being raised and stuff like that. And you're like, no, like God is everything. Or like, I don't know, like, you know how like back in the day, like before they would set up marriage before like, oh, before you're born, this person's going to marry this person or whatever. So like you're manipulated to think like, oh, this is the person I'm supposed to be with. Like it's like a manipulation, you know? So that's why I'm saying like, I don't feel like his idea is necessarily correct because you can be manipulated into thinking a certain way. So and then that feeling.
Go ahead, finish.
I was going to say, you don't know if that feeling is true because that's the only feeling that you have, you know? And I understand lack of feeling would also like kind of like contribute to like not really knowing, like you don't know that.
That's the idea. You're talking on two levels at once, right? I hear you talk about being deluded and at the same time feeling, right? The delusion, yes, you can be deluded into thinking that you love someone or something, but the feelings, you can't force. You can't force, right? You can be told you should love, or you can tell yourself, I love, and actually many religious people are trying to convince themselves all day long because they have nothing in their hearts, right? Many of us, right? We are arguing and we are saying, yes, I know and I believe, and because our hearts, nothing. right? So let's be careful, because delusion happens up here. But when it comes to the feeling, you either have it or you don't. I like the way you put it, Cancino. If you don't have a feeling, then there is no truth. And if there is a feeling, then there is something there. That's all that Rumi is saying, right? You can't force the feelings. If you don't feel anything when it comes to the spiritual dimension, then that's your truth, right? That's your truth. But if you do receive the grace of a feeling, don't shut it out. That's all he's saying, right? Does that make sense, Cancino?
So like yes and no. Just because like if you were brought up a certain way, like you're taught to feel that way. You get what I'm saying? Like
You're taught to feel. You can't be taught to feel.
Like you don't know that, you know? So that's why I'm saying like it's like hard to really know. Like you could be tricked into feeling something, you know, and you don't know, you know?
I don't think we can be tricked into feeling something. I think we can be tricked into thinking something, but feeling, even arranged marriages, you can ask some of these couples, the love didn't develop. Sometimes the love doesn't develop, right? But sometimes it does, and then it's real. I don't think we can be tricked into feeling something, to be honest. That's where we might disagree. I think we can be tricked into feeling, thinking, right? I think I love them because this, and we convince ourselves, right, that this is the right path, but the feeling is there or it's not there, right? Simone, you want to add to the discussion?
No, I agree with what you're saying. Like, I feel like your feeling is your intuition, and most of the time, you know, people say trust your gut. 90%, 95% of the time, that gut feeling is usually right. So I feel like your feelings don't lie to you when you like get that intuition.
Right. So I would go along those lines. Now, if you're feeling nothing when it comes to God or a given religion, trust that. That's truth, right? If you're feeling nothing, or if you're feeling like numb, then that's the truth that you have right now, right? But if you're feeling something, and a feeling is always happens to you, it's a grace. If you receive the grace of inner peace, even for the space of a second, you sense that something was given to me in response to this cry that I cried out, right? What Rumi is saying, take it seriously. Something has just happened, right? You have just been given a response, or a moment of truth has just happened. Don't miss it. Okay, let me quickly go into the quotes and then we'll take a much needed break. Go to page 11. So the poem Mystics Know, the 5th line, if you tell a thirsty man, here's a cup of water, drink, will he reply, this is mere assertion, leave me alone, oh liar, go away, right? So this is both examples, right? Or the mother with the baby, right? Will the baby say, prove this to me? This is simply saying that once you've had this experiential knowledge, you don't need intellectual confirmation, because you already know, but on another level, right? In other words, he's simply showing the difference between the two levels. Intellectual knowledge, this is good for science, this is good to understand the world around us, our physical bodies. But when it comes to invisible realm, the experiential knowledge, or these graces, right, these responses that we have on the emotional level, is what now a lot of us, I know a lot of us are struggling with this, because we have been taught by Western civilization to distrust our feelings, right? We only trust our mind. We have been taught, I mean, starting with Descartes, right? Starting with the Cartesian tradition, right? Descartes is the founder of Western philosophy, right? Starting with Descartes, we have been told our feelings can't be trusted. Our feelings are lie. They're confused. They're obscure. We can only trust our reason, right? What Rumi is saying is knowledge also can lie. You can also have false concepts in your head. Feelings, however, can also tell the truth. Yes, some feelings can be obscure and confused too. We'll have to talk about the purification of the heart, right? But there are some feelings which are really telling you something, and that they are really a moment of truth. You are receiving a response, right, from the outside. It's a feeling that comes to you. And at that moment, you have a moment of truth, according to Rumi. Here's the last quote where he talks about what I mentioned. Last line in the poem, page 12. But never in the world will the soul's ear have heard a cry of the same kind as this. That wondrous voice is heard by the soul in exile, the voice of God calling, lo, I am nigh. Nigh means close, right? This moment where you feel the closeness of God, this is knowledge, right? You are at that moment experiencing a moment of truth in your flesh, not in your mind, in your flesh, right? That's the idea. Okay, any questions before we take a break? All right, let's see, it's 5:18. Shall we do just 2 minutes till 5:20? Let's do just 2 minutes and then come back for the rest, for the purification of the heart. Okay, I'm gonna stop the recording and we'll have a 2-minute break.